Hey, happy February 2024. Thanks for coming to Real Community. I want to invite you to a fun event we have coming up. We're going to go bowling. Would love to have you join us, so stick around. I'm going to tell you about that. And then, have you ever eaten at the Pickled Pepper? It is my favorite sandwich shop and cafe in town. So I want to tell you about that, and then we're going to give away some free lunches. So if you enjoy sandwiches or soup or salads, stick around for the details. I want you to register for that. So 5 of you will get a chance to win 2 lunches. Well, you all get a chance to win, but 5 of you will win 2 lunches to the Pickled Pepper. And then, have you been thinking at all, like, what's been going on with home values in the market? I get that question all the time. What's happened with home values? Are they appreciating or depreciating? So we're just going to end today by looking at home values over the last 4 winters and what has occurred there. I'm going to go bowling, and I would love for you to join me. So it's free. It's this coming Sunday. It's February 25th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Bolero Lanes in Lakewood. I think I've already said this. It's totally free to you. All you have to do is register. So it's a community and client appreciation event. Come, hang out, register. Would love to spend the afternoon with some just good old-fashioned fun bowling together. If you've never been to the Pickled Pepper, you need to check it out. So I sat down this last week with Katie Helland, the owner, and had her tell me some of her story, which is super cool, of how she went from just working there in the early 2000s to pursuing social work and a degree in school. She left the Pickled Pepper, and then years later, as the pandemic occurred and the shutdown occurred, she got this phone call. And she'd lost her other job. She didn't know what was next, and she still had a great relationship with the prior owner. She got a phone call and said, "Hey, Katie, do you want to purchase the Pickled Pepper?" And she remembered dreams she had about how they could grow the shop and what it could be. It was scary because it was in the midst of all the shutdowns, but she decided to take the plunge. And the shop has just exploded with third-party deliveries, and she's flourished, and it's been super difficult at times and uncomfortable, but really good. And everything they make is from scratch. They are constantly coming up with new recipes and specials. I had just the other day a sweet potato lentil soup that Katie was experimenting with, and I texted her afterward and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is so good." And it was fun to hear later how excited she gets when she gets feedback like that from customers. So the Pickled Pepper is in downtown Puyallup. When you're on Highway 512 going toward 161, passing Main, and you see those big blue buildings with the mirrors on them, those are kind of part of the Keller Williams offices. And when you're in my living room at home, like my kids, when the sun is setting and it shines off those mirrors from our deck or our living room, they can look out and see them, and they're like, "There's Dad's offices." So the Pickled Pepper is a small cafe attached to one of those buildings, and we are giving away 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each card is good for 2 free lunches. So register for your chance to win. We're going to do a drawing next week, and would love the opportunity. Katie and I would love the opportunity just to share some really great food with you. And then if you have not been to the Pickled Pepper, make a point to be there. I was doing some showings with a client, and he happened to bring up the Pickled Pepper and said it was the best sandwich shop around, and it really is. So check it out, enter the drawing, and then let's talk about home values in the market. I'm going to transition over to my whiteboard, and I have a graph drawn that I want to show you. So come over there with me, and let's just take a look at what's happened with home values over the last 4 years. Okay, welcome to my whiteboard. We're going to talk about home prices in the market in Western Washington over the last 4 winters. Everybody asks me, not everybody, but I regularly get asked the question of what's going on with home prices. Have they dropped? Are they going up? What's going on? And this graphic just helps to kind of visualize what has happened in the market with home prices, particularly focusing on the wintertime over the last 4 years. So the main thing you see here is the blue curve. The blue curve is home prices. We've got January 2021, January 2022, 23, and 24. In January, now there's kind of a rolling seasonal average. When we think about the median home sale price, January tends to be kind of the low point of the year for that. We typically see kind of the high point in May to June, but because we're just coming out of January, it's February, I'm focusing on January for the purposes of this graph and conversation. So in January 2021, the median home price sold in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service was $452,000. A year later, January 22, it went up to $525,000. And then a year later, in January 23, it went up to 530. But what you'll notice, in addition to just kind of a seasonal high in May, June, between 2022 and 2023, we had a really high spike all the way up to 635 for the median sale price of a home in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service. And then a substantial drop back to that January. From January 2023 to this last month, January of 24, the median home sale price went up from 530 to 550 in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service. So what's interesting about this? In addition to this really high peak that we see, we can think about kind of the market average appreciation of home values, and even taking into account recessions that we've had, even taking into account the big mortgage bust and crash of 2008, 2009, 2010. Even taking those things into account, the average appreciation value of homes in the market is around 4% per year. So I went back to January of 2021, started at the 452,000, and looked at a 4% appreciation per year from then until today, 3 years later. I'm doing my math incorrectly. And if we looked at 4% appreciation, the median home sale value today, as of January, would have been around 521,000. So even though we've had some really high points and we've lowered, what's so interesting is over the last year, we've stabilized in this upward trend. And if you look at 530 to 550, the difference is 20,000, right? So this last year, home values from January to January appreciated 20,000, which is about 4% of the 530 number. We experienced normal appreciation this last year, and we are above the trend from 2021 to 2024. We're still $30,000, an additional 4% or more. I guess that'd be about 6% above where we ought to be. So even though we've had a lot of fluctuations, it's been a very dynamic market with highs and lows over the last few years. We have sustained even higher than average appreciation of home values over that time. We've talked about supply and demand just briefly. I put the demand here with some stats. So if you look at the number of home sales per year, as of January 2021, there were 6,400 home sales that month. That was a lot of home sales, a high demand. A year later, 2022, it went down from 6,400 to 5,500. So we decreased our demand. January 23, we dropped from 5,500 to 3,600 sales that month. That's a pretty substantial decrease. But look what happened between January 23 and January 24. We went up from 3,600 to 3,800 sales, minimally, almost the same, but you'll see a stability there. The demand stabilized. Now let's look at supply. This is months of inventory of homes on the market. How long it would take for all the homes on the market to sell if no new homes were added. That's months of inventory based on the rate that buyers are buying. Back in January of 2021, 1.1 months of inventory. Now, kind of anywhere from 1 to 3 months is a really robust seller's market. So that was a huge seller's market with really low supply. A year later, January 2022, that supply went down even lower to 0.8 months of inventory. Then we saw the big increase from January 2022 to January 2023 going up to 1.9 months, almost 2 months. But again, look what happened between January 23 and January 24. We only went up from 1.9 months of inventory to 2.1 months of inventory. That's very stable. The demand increased just slightly. The inventory increased just slightly. The appreciation of home values in the last year from January to January experienced an average 4% appreciation. So in the midst of a lot of craziness, in the midst of really high interest rates, when interest rates were super low and demand was really high, man, appreciation skyrocketed temporarily for a time. The brakes were hit, interest rates went up, people slowed down on their buying. We didn't see massive depreciation in home values over the period of this time, but what we did see was the major there was some correction in this time in here, and then we saw the slowing of appreciation back to a pretty normal space. So all of that to say, there's actually a lot of stability in the housing market right now. We're experiencing less sales than we're used to experiencing, But inventory is still so low that it's keeping that stability there. So as interest rates continue to come down, and they have in October, this last year we experienced a high in the 8s. As of last month in January, we saw them into the 6s. The last week or so, they've kind of come up a little bit again. They're in the kind of low 7, high 6s range. But as they continue to make their way down, that will only strengthen home values and strengthen the market. If you have any questions about your home's value, if you have any questions about what it looks like to buy in the market today, or anything else at all about real estate, investment, building wealth in the market, I would love to talk to you about those things. Don't forget to register for our bowling event. Don't forget to register for the opportunity to win two free lunches, a card to the Pickled Pepper. Check out Katie Helland and the Pickled Pepper. Have a great February, everyone. Look forward to connecting with you, hopefully at the event and in March.